Okay, here we go again. This is another chapter of our Introduction to Religious Studies. Today we're going to talk about cosmogony. And my name is Professor Joseph Holbrook, and this is the Introduction to Religious Studies, REL 2011, in the fall of 2015 at FIU, Florida International University. Cosmogony is the mythology of beginnings. So let us begin. The practical basis of cosmogony, it's the idea of the beginning of the world. It's a relatively sophisticated idea involving some sense of detachment from the world and the imagination of a different state of affairs. Mircea Eliade, the historian of religion, says, "Myth narrates a sacred history. It relates an event that took place in primordial time, the fabled time of beginnings." So there are different kinds of cosmogonies. One particular example from ancient Egypt is the emergence from a primal substance or some sort of being. In the earliest cosmogony, earliest myths from Egypt in the 2500 BCE, before the Common Era, are accounts of life emerging from a primordial watery abyss. The sun god and creator is Re-Atum, and he appears to be self-created. Re-Atum then proceeds to create the first male and female couple by sneezing. Another form of cosmogony is the sexual union of a primal male and female. In many religions, creation is the result of the sexual union of a primeval male and female. For example, the yin, which is earth or female, and the yang, which is the sky and male of Chinese mythology. Also in Greek mythology, we have the example of Uranus, the sky father, and Gaia, the earth mother. This is taken from Hesiod's Theogony. There's also a third form of cosmogony, which is creation by conflict and the ordering of chaos. In the biblical accounts, some of the symbols of chaos or evil are the dragon, the serpent, or the leviathan. In the Egyptian cosmogony, Apophis was a water monster or snake serpent symbolizing darkness. In Mesopotamian cosmogony, the ancient goddess Tiamat, represented as a water monster, is defeated by the god Marduk, who uses parts of her body to create the earth. Actually this picture is a rendering of the idea of Jehovah or Yahweh fighting with Leviathan. And here we have the Egyptian Apophis symbolizing chaos. And finally, this is a rendering of Tiamat of the Mesopotamian mythology. Tiamat was a mother goddess as well as a goddess of chaos and the goddess of the ocean, and a sea monster. Then there's creation by the divine craftsman. We've been using the terms cosmogony and creation interchangeably. Technically, creation means creatio ex nihilo, or creation by decree, or creation out of nothing. Creatio ex nihilo is most obvious in the latter theologies of the three Western monotheistic faiths of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. It is derived from the creation account in Genesis. And of course we must have our obligatory joke of the week. And God separated the light from the dark. And you see him doing his laundry here. In Greek philosophy, the earliest Greeks believed that the world evolved from one simple substance. They viewed the world animistically as a living divine organism. Thales is one example in the 6th century BC, believed that the world emerged from water. Anaximenes believed that the primal substance was air. Heraclitus believed that the original substance was fire. Empedocles in the 5th century believed it came from forces of love and hate, which is very interesting because a couple millennium later, the psychologist Freud comes up with a very similar theory. Anaxagoras believed that the earth evolved from nous, or the mind, which is very interesting. That has some congruence with the idea of intelligent design. In Plato's book Timaeus, he discusses several concepts of the cosmos. Some people would consider this the highest development in Greek philosophy represented by Plato's writings. He believed that the cosmos was the work of intelligence, that mind that orders all things. The divine craftsman he called a demiurge. The demiurge refashioned the formless chaos as a copy of the eternal forms or ideas. There's also creation by decree. In the Mayan creation story, the cosmogony is deliberative and a willed action, and is not conceived solely in terms of procreation. Here's a passage from the Mayan Popol Vuh. Thus let it be done. Let the emptiness be filled. Let the waters recede and make a void. Let the earth appear and become solid. Let it be done. Thus they spoke. Let there be light. Earth. They said, and instantly it was made. So it was that they made perfect the work, and when they did it after thinking and meditating upon it. If you compare that with Genesis chapter 1, you'll find a remarkable similarity between the Mayan creation story and the Hebrew creation story. Another approach is creation by decree, and this would bring us to the Genesis account. And there's actually two accounts of creation in Genesis. The first one being Genesis chapter 1, verses 1 through 24, and some Bible scholars consider that the work of the priestly editor, represented by P. And then there's Genesis chapter 2, the second half of verse 4 through verse 5, which scholars also consider to be the work of the Yahwist, or the J or the E. In Genesis, there is no theogony. That is, there's no creation of the gods. The doctrine of creatio ex nihilo is that there is no other reality co-eternal with God. This finite world is wholly dependent upon God, and therefore not of the same substance or identical with God. In other words, the world is not divine, unlike the pantheistic view. In the Hebrew myth, there is no struggle between the Creator and any other beings in the act of bringing forth the cosmic order. There's also a high view of humanity. A male and female, they are created in the image of God, from which it can be argued that Western civilization derives its view of human rights from this cosmogony, the Hebrew cosmogony. Also, creation is considered good. After each day of creation, God looks at his creation and declares that it is good. In some traditions, there is a rejection of cosmogonic speculation, particularly in the Buddhist as well as the Jainist traditions. Gautama Buddha lived in the 6th century before the Common Era, disapproved of cosmogonic theorizing. His view has characterized the school of Buddhism called Theravada. The Buddha was indifferent to metaphysical questions about cosmic beginnings or endings that appear irresolvable. He felt that it was useless speculation, and it was more important to meditate upon how one should live. And of course, we have our modern or contemporary cosmogony. Our contemporary or modern cosmogony would tend to be the Darwin theory of evolution. Some believers put that in the terms of intelligent design. There's also the Marxist theory of history and ethical action, which views history as a series of stages of economic relations between social classes. Freud also asserted that the world has no meaning, but he posited his own theory of eros, or the life instinct, versus thanatos, or the death instinct. The anthropic principle is a recognition of some physicists of the fine-tuning required by our world. For the existence of our world, there is necessary a convergence of many constraints and constants that appear to defy all probabilities. For example, the cosmological constant of hydrogen. If hydrogen was just a little bit denser, we wouldn't exist. Stephen Hawking said the odds against a universe like ours emerging out of something like the Big Bang are enormous. Clearly, there are religious implications. There's also the idea of an inbuilt teleology. There were inbuilt teleological tendencies in the evolution of life, including the human life in this universe, tendencies that beg for some kind of metaphysical explanation. A scientist by the name of Freeman Dyson says that the finely wrought architecture of the universe does not prove the existence of God, but it is consistent with a hypothesis that mind plays an essential role in its functioning, which takes us back to the Greek philosophy of the primal substance being mind. A designed universe. It is important to recognize that Darwinian evolution is a theory, not a proven fact. The conflict between science and religion has been rekindled by those who espouse creation science and attempt to mandate its teaching in schools. Creation science is essentially negative. Rather than presenting its own scientific theory, it critiques and points out gaps in the fossil record or the incongruities in Darwinianism and evolutionary theory. Nevertheless, creation science is not a science, but is a particular religious belief. Creation science adherents must pledge to a statement of faith which includes a literal 6-day creation and a worldwide flood. True science cannot start out with extra scientific assumptions. Creation science was discredited within the scientific community in the 1980s. A group of scientists came together to demonstrate on a scientific grounds that the universe reveals an intelligent design. In 1996, the Discovery Institute was established at the Center for the Renewal of Science and Culture. This represents intelligent design, which is a different approach than creation science. While creationism rejects evolution, intelligent design, or ID, affirms it. Proponents of ID deny the Darwinian claim that the mechanisms of evolution are sufficient to explain evolution. And they also affirm that naturalistic materialism is not just an adequate hypothesis, but is rather a metaphysical faith. In other words, the belief that there is nothing spiritual, that everything is material, is a belief that has certain metaphysical assumptions involved with it. Intelligent design is not a form of creationism, nor is it a form of naturalism. It is not just a compromise between these two positions. ID is a third way based on the concept of an irreducible complexity of some key biological organisms and cellular structure. And so that finishes our overview of Chapter 9 of Cosmogony, and I hope you will read the chapter, and good luck on the quiz. Thank you very much.